Hello. So nice to see a customer. I am Whittle, and welcome to this shop, a classical gaming shop. I'm sure you're aware what we are as you came in there, of course. Yeah, what can I do for you today? Yeah, you want a game. Yeah, so as you know, the concept with this shop is that we provide our customers with classical games. Games that are at least 5 years old. That's our rule. They have to be at least 5 years old or we don't sell them. Here we provide our customers with classical games, you know. So there are no modern games, no games recently released or anything like that. No. And we of course provide our customers with a full experience, and because of that I will talk about each game. And yeah, I have some on display here, and yeah, you may want one of them. Yeah, but you maybe want an introduction to them first. Although you may know some of them from before, but yeah, so it's okay if I just ramble a little about them and give you some introduction before you make a choice. Yeah, I don't know if you had a clear choice in mind when you came in here, but anyway. By the way, I hope you're doing well and I hope your day is going well. Good. Yeah, I know it's not every shop you get this kind of service where the person you buy it from actually ramble about the games, but this is sort of a classical gaming shop and we're very dedicated here. Yeah, so I hope that's okay. So okay, just relax, and by the way, I think there's a chair in the corner there, you can just sit down if you want. You don't have to stand while I talk about this, you can sit down. Just relax, okay? Yeah, okay. I hope you'll enjoy. I hope you'll enjoy me just talking a little about these games. Yeah, before you buy them, of course. Okay. Are you comfortable? Yeah, good. Okay, I have brought some classical games here. So which shall we begin with? Shall we begin from my left, your right, essentially? Yeah, okay. This is a super within the RPG community, the role-playing community of gamers. This is a very famous game, especially for those who are interested in fantasy. This is Dragon Age Origins, and it's from the company of BioWare, who made a lot of RPG games back in the 2000s and early 2010s. And Dragon Age Origins is the first game of the Dragon Age series. And as it says here on the back cover, from the maker of Mass Effect comes this fantasy epic. And yeah, Dragon Age Origins is a very nice original fantasy game. It is BioWare's take on a fantasy universe. It is set in the continent of Tidus, a sort of medieval fantasy type of continent. And in the first game you play as a Grey Warden who has to defend the country of Ferelden, the fictional country of Ferelden, from a threat called for the Darkspawn. Yeah, and they emerge as a threat every now and then throughout this continent's history, and in this game that threat returns and threatens the country of Ferelden, and your character becomes a Grey Warden to defend the country from this threat. And the Darkspawn are essentially the equivalents of orcs or trolls, goblins, you know, that type of stuff. But you essentially have to fight them and their dragon leader during the game. So this is the first game of the Dragon Age series, and it's a very sort of it's an action RPG, but with some classical RPG elements. And yeah, and there are 6 background stories to choose from, and depending on what you choose to play as, you get to play through one of the 6 background stories before you go to Ostagar and begins the main plot. And Ostagar is a fictional location within this universe, just to be clear. So, and there your character, after you have played through your background story, becomes a Grey Warden and has to essentially unite the country of Ferelden and its various factions to defeat the threat, which means lots of subplots, quests, and the typical RPG stuff. Assemble various factions from across the country, to fight the threat. The typical RPG formula. That's very enjoyable nonetheless. You can choose to play as an elf, a dwarf, or a human. And with these also come classes: rogue, mage, or warrior. Although it should be said that mage, you can only play as a mage if you are a elf or human, and mages have only one origin story accessible. So yeah, so your classes and what race you choose to play as determine what kind of background story you have and get to play through in the beginning. Anyway, this is just the first entry of the Dragon Age series, and each Dragon Age game follows a different protagonist and a different conflict, and is set within a different country or location of Tidus. The first game is set in Ferelden, which is the equivalent of medieval Britain. Then there is the Three Marches in the second game, the city-state of Kirkwall, more specifically. The third game is set to both Ferelden and Olay, and Olay is essentially Renaissance France equivalent. And then the fourth game, the most recently released game, called for Dragon Age the Veilguard, is set in the northern Tidus, and in various places in northern Tidus, including the Tevinter Imperium. So, but they each follow different protagonists and conflicts and themes. So, but it's a very enjoyable series, sort of telling the history of the Tidus universe. Yeah. Let's move on to next. So, by the way, I hope you're still comfortable and doing good and relaxed, of course. Yeah, good. This is Lego Harry Potter collection. I'm sure you've heard about some of the Harry Potter games, especially Hogwarts Legacy, one of the most recently released Harry Potter games. But today we're going to talk about a classical Harry Potter game, a Lego game. This is Harry Potter Years 1 to 4 and Harry Potter Years 5 to 7. It's actually a remaster, but because these games were originally released in the early 2010s. And Lego Harry Potter explores Harry Potter's time at Hogwarts in Lego form. So it consists that charming, quaint Lego humor and Lego take on the Harry Potter universe. The game does not take itself very seriously, but you get to explore Hogwarts in Lego form, take classes in Lego form, and of course play through some of the main plot points of the Harry Potter story. And it's a very enjoyable game. You also get to explore the Diagon Alley in Lego form and, various places within the Harry Potter universe. So if you like Harry Potter and Lego, I'd say this is a must-buy for you. Yeah, if you haven't already tried it. Very enjoyable. Let's move on to the next games. I think we should just take both. Yeah. Okay. We begin with this. So we're going to go back to the earlier days of action RPG now, and this triggers the nerd in me, really. This is because now I'm going to ramble a little. This is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and this was released all the way back over 20 years ago in 2003. And this is one of the early games from BioWare, and it's BioWare's take on the Star Wars universe. But it is set thousands of years before the movies, to the Old Republic area within the Star Wars universe. And this is one of two Knights of the Old Republic game. It has a sequel, the Sith Lords it's called, that sequel, but that is developed by Obsidian. But it's very close to the first game in style and everything. Now, the graphics of this game is of course quite outdated, but that actually adds to its quaint charm in many ways. So in this game, and this game was quite revolutionary when it first came out. In many ways, this game and Fable sort of set the foundation for modern action RPGs. I'd say in many ways. Because Fable came out around the same time, which Fable is a fantasy game by the way, and that also set, and I'd say that game and this game sort of set the foundation for the modern action RPGs. This game included being able to make choices, role-playing, having conversations, interacting with companions and stuff like that, and you got to choose your path. You could choose whether you wanted to go the light path or the not so light path. And whether, and it's set thousands of years before the events of the movies, and in the Old Republic area, and it's set during a time between a war between the Sith and the Jedi. And in the game you sort of have to, well, you begin on this urban city world called Taris. After your ship you're enlisted on, the Ender Spire, sort of is attacked by the Sith, and you crash land in a pod, and you then begin and have to sort of explore and make your way through the city planet of Taris and find a Jedi and get off the planet. That's how it begins. And also await the Sith, because there is a Sith occupation on the world. And then the plot goes on from there, and you go to the Dantooine, the forest farming, the plain farming world of Dantooine, and there is a Jedi temple, and you learn in the ways of the Jedi. And then you have to go across the galaxy and find various star maps to find the location of an ancient Sith weapon, so that you can destroy that weapon and win the war for the Jedi. But there are some twists as we go along, and as the game approaches end, you don't necessarily have to ally with the Jedi. There is a choice involved. I don't want to spoil too much if anyone hasn't played this game, and but you know, if there are some who haven't played this game, you know. If you haven't played this game, I mean, yeah, so I don't want to spoil too much. But it's very enjoyable. Very classical type of RPG game. And you get to explore a lot of different worlds. After Dantooine, you get to choose between 4 different worlds. Tatooine, you know, that famous location from movies, just millennia before the movies, of course. But it's still a desert Dust Bowl planet. Kashyyyk, the home of the Wookiees, Manaan, a water planet, or Korriban, the Sith planet. And you have to find the star maps on these planets. And its sequel, which takes a more philosophical approach, is set 5 years later, follows a different protagonist, and sort of explores the aftermath of this war between the Jedi and Sith. So during the sequel, it's a more personal story, where you have to find out about your own past and how the war shaped your character's past in a way. And where you have to find some Jedi Masters who are in hiding. And in that game follows a similar formula. You recruit companions and drives around the galaxy with your ship, the Ebon Hawk, and get to explore various planets and worlds. There are 2 returning planets from the first game in the second game, which is Korriban and Dantooine. But other than that, it features new planets like Onderon, Telos, and Nar Shaddaa, and you know, some other locations which weren't featured in the first game. So if you like the Star Wars universe and like RPGs and don't mind some classical stuff, this game may be for you. The other game I want to show you is Assassin's Creed Origins. This is actually the Gold Edition. And Assassin's Creed Origins was released like 8 years ago. And it is set to ancient Egypt. And Assassin's Creed is of course that super famous historical gaming series which has featured a lot of games. This is the 10th main installment. And it is set to ancient Egypt during the reign of Cleopatra and Roman occupation. But it is also the first game of what I call the Ancient Saga. of Assassin's Creed games. And the Ancient Saga are the games of Origins, set to ancient Egypt, beginning with this one. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, set to ancient Greek. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, set to the age of the Vikings. And Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is set to Baghdad, just a decade before the events of Valhalla. So, and these are all set in the times before the first Assassin's Creed games, hence why I call it the Ancient Saga. It is not a name I have made up, it's actually a name which a lot of people online refers to these games as that, the Ancient Saga. They often refer to these games as. Yeah. And these games are also defined by taking a more RPG direction than the previous games, especially Odyssey and definitely especially Valhalla. But Origins began this, although its RPG elements are a little lighter than Odyssey and Valhalla. It should be pointed out that Mirage, on the other hand, takes the more classical Assassin's Creed pre-RPG approach. It is more a stealth game again. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to explore ancient Egypt, I'd advise this game, and it features a very enjoyable story and characters and stuff like that. Okay, let's just take pause there. If you want to go back to the earlier days of Assassin's Creed, there's always Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Here it says Ivy Fort on the cover, but it's actually the 6th main installment. But it's called Assassin's Creed 4 despite being the 6th main installment. The reason for that is that the 3rd and 4th main installment were actually just continuations of Assassin's Creed 2, following the same character as in Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio. And Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood and Revelations, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th game, was essentially the Ezio trilogy. So because of that, this game is called Assassin's Creed 4, even though it is the 6th main installment. And this game is the 2nd game in the American Saga, as I call it, which is the games of Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag and Rogue, and also the side game Liberation. And Black Flag is the 2nd installment of the American Saga, and which are all games obviously set to America. And this is set to the Caribbean during the golden age of piracy in the early 18th century. It's a very enjoyable game if you want to play as a pirate. And you can explore the Caribbean with a ship, you can raid ships and stuff like that. And it's an Assassin's Creed game where the assassin story is there, but it's more on the side, and it's more about the characters and the pirate stuff really. And there is one other game which has a similar direction as this, and that is Valhalla, where you play as a Viking and where the assassin story also is on the side. But this game is not an RPG like Valhalla. It has more of the classical Assassin's Creed vibe, but this is in many ways the game which truly paved the road for later Assassin's Creed games in terms of what it was the first game to truly feature a full-scale open world map to explore. Yes, Assassin's Creed 3 had some open world nature locations, but Assassin's Creed Black Flag truly opens up the world fully and allows you to explore lots of islands, the sea, and even underwater locations and everything. It really laid the foundations for a lot of later Assassin's Creed games. So it's quite an enjoyable game if you want to get into Assassin's Creed and just want to play as a pirate, you know, during the golden age of piracy. Yeah. And of course the American Saga was a little different than the previous 4 games, the first 4 games in the series, because in the American Saga exploring nature and stuff like that became much more a priority than it had been in the first 4 games. The first 4 games, although they had nature locations, were a little more urban based, but in the American Saga nature and exploring nature got a much bigger priority. So yeah. Okay, I hope you aren't tired of my nerdy rambles. No, but you know, I'm just trying to help you make an informed decision about what to buy. Yeah. Speaking of classical games, this game from 2012 is called for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. It is a fantasy game featuring a fictional fantasy continent called Amalur, and there are a lot of smaller places to explore within, like, in the main game there are like 5 big regions with lots of different villages, towns, and even some cities to explore, and places. So there are the Forest Realm, I believe. There's a Forest Realm. I don't know all the names right now because it's been a while since I played the game. But there is a Forest Realm where the game begins. There is a Canyon Realm, a Plains and Rolling Hills realm, a Jungle Realm, and a Crystal Kingdom Realm. And the DLCs, some DLCs, downloadable content, also added some new realms, including a Summer Island realm, a Mountain realm, and I believe it was released a new DLC just recently, just a few years ago, which I believe added sort of more like a snowy type of realm. So yeah, it's a big game to play through, and it's just set in a completely fictional fantasy continent with completely fictional fantasy lore and stuff. But if you like fantasy stuff, you may enjoy this game, and a lot of people have compared this to the Fable games and sort of said it's kind of like a spiritual successor to the Fable games, and I get that, because it has the similar colorful artwork and some similar vibes as the Fable games. It's not entirely the same as Fable, but it has some similarities. So you get to choose what kind of class, race to play as, and you know, the typical fantasy RPG stuff. You can do quests for various factions and stuff, and do lots of various quests and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah. This is GRSRF, and this is also a classical RPG. This is also a classical game from decades ago, and it's called Jet Set Radio Shooter. And it's a game which is famous, and which has a cult status, and which is famous with those who know of it, so to speak. And they are working on a reboot of Jet Set Radio Shooter, which essentially is supposed to be open world. And they are also recently released called a game which is called for Bombrush Cyberpunk, which is kind of like a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio Shooter. But Jet Set Radio Shooter is a super enjoyable game-playing game where you skate and graffiti a lot of places, fight cops, and fight the powers that be, so to speak, and rival gangs. And it has an enjoyable and wild, crazy story while you do this and do various contests and fun contests, skating, graffitiing, and racing other gangs and stuff like that, and recruiting new players and skaters, and you can play as. Yeah, and it's really kind of a rebel culture kind of game, really getting in touch with the whole early 2000s rebel culture. Very enjoyable game. So yeah, if any of these interested you, I can, yeah, one of two of them interest you. You know what, I'll be kind, I'll give you one of them free of charge. Don't tell my superiors I did that, but I'll do it for you, because you've been so patient with me just rambling on about these games, you know, and just listening, so I appreciate it. Okay? Okay, good. You want one of them? Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll wrap it for you and put it in a box for you and have it ready to go. Or I can just hand it to you if you prefer that. Depends what you prefer. Some people prefer to have it more in a box. Other people prefer to just get it handed to them. Okay. Well, it's been so nice having you as a customer, and I hope you didn't tire of my rambling. I hope you felt I provided with good customer service. I know I did a lot of talking today, but that was to help you make an informed decision of which classical game or games to buy. Okay, all the best to you, and I hope you enjoy your days, and I hope you enjoy the game or the games you choose. Yeah. Okay. Enjoy your time with the game event or the games, and have a great day.